Our Cape City Clerk, Ms. Lisa Lambert.
This is the pre-meeting of the Mobile City Council, Tuesday, November 29th. We have public hearings. Today is a public hearing to consider approval of a certificate of public convenience and necessity to mobile pedal tours to operate an electric motor-assisted pedal vehicle.
Is this the thing that I sent over to you, Lawrence, where the guy was complaining about the license and he had applied 2 or 3 times and he had to get all the stuff corrected with the city because of the use of existing scooters? Send that to somebody. Okay, if it's the same group, that's fine.
Public hearings. There's a public hearing to declare the structures at 1205 Noble Beasley, formerly known as Pritchard Avenue, a public nuisance and ordered demolished in 2010 Tucker Street.
Pen, good? Yeah. All right, Madam Clerk.
Presentation of petitions and other communications to the council. Darlene Martin requesting donations for Lead One, Teach One. John Kozlinski, support for his ministry to the homeless. Eric Overstreet, homeless issues in Mobile. Adrian Edwards, what can be done to protect the homeless during inclement weather. Reverend Byron Jackson, provide information about the Agency for Substance Abuse Prevention. Dr. Richardson, providing information about mobile area interface and programs at Metro Jail. Kenneth Hughes, the urgency to approve Medevac Alabama Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity. Fred Wheeler, support of the current approach to annexation. Yvette Young, giving information about annual fundraiser to revitalize DIP. Reggie Hill, chapters 38 and 46 of the Municipal Code and ARP Resolution and Surplus Spending Ordinance. Elizabeth Stevens, comments regarding the DDD. Ordinances held. Okay.
Mr. President,
Yeah, Mr. Days.
doesn't have anything necessarily to do with this, but what day will we have our meeting across the street?
Across the street.
City Hall.
City Hall, old City Hall.
Oh.
December 20th.
Yeah,
December 20th?
Yes.
And are we going to follow our usual practice of not meeting on the Tuesday between Christmas and New Year's?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Because Christmas is on.
On Sunday.
Sunday.
Yeah, so we won't meet the following Tuesday.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Thank you.
Must be really on your heart.
And also, Mr. President,
Yeah, Mr. Reynolds.
this Medevac Certificate of Public Convenience, when does that come up?
That's the week after next.
The week after next. Okay. Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
Ordinance is held over 64060. Ordinance to amend section 64.3.1 Downtown Development District of the current zoning ordinance, chapter 64 Mobile City Code, and amend appendix A Downtown Development District.
Council, anyone? All right, Madam Clerk.
64063, ordinance to amend proposed amendments to section 64.3.1 Downtown Development District of the current zoning ordinance, chapter 64 of the Mobile City Code, and proposed amendment to appendix A Downtown Development Code.
Mr. Carroll, Mr. Jones, anything?
We're just gonna table the first one,
How would you guys want to handle it? We can table it.
either way. I mean, it's either vote it up or down or table it, so.
I would say just table.
Just table it.
Yeah.
Madam Clerk.
64064, rezone property located at the south side of Dolphin Street, 520 feet east of Sage Avenue, extending to the east side of Sage Avenue, extending to the west terminal of Exeter Drive and Sherwood Drive South from LB2 and R3 to R3.
Good, Mr. Penn. All right, Madam Clerk.
64065, rezone property located at 2819 Government Boulevard from R1 and B2 to B2.
That's fine.
64066, rezone property located at 1263 Baker Street from R2 and I2 to I2.
That's fine.
Resolutions held over. 081027, approved purchase order to Donahue Chevrolet for Chevrolet Tahoes. 08-1028, approved purchase order to Tyler Technologies for annual continuing education services. 21-1029, authorized contract with Melvin Pierce Painting for exterior renovations at the History Museum. 60-1030, authorized settlement agreement and release of claims. 60-1031, approved settlement agreement and release of claims. 60-1034, adopt the master plan civic center site by Populous 2022.
Anything from the council?
Um,
Carol?
Question about logistics. 6130, 0130, 6134. Does the master plan need to come in front of the ordinance?
Same thing. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Anything else?
The master plan, does it? It doesn't have to go through any public hearing or anything like that. Do we know that?
Yeah, it did not go through. We don't think it needs to go through.
Well, I mean, just so that there's some clarity to the master plan, I call it the back of the napkin plan because it was taken 100% from what was given to us from Populous. The area, the boundaries, what we deem to be possible streets and other things like that. And, you know, it's inconclusive. The area will probably change with development, you know, depending on what happens. But it's still a statement to say that we really need a serious master plan for the area. And that's just to say that moving forward that we won't or can't get there, because I think we are going to get there, especially with what we know what may possibly happen east of this property now that we have other venues that may come into our city that'll probably need master planning also. So I see that at some point in time we'll get there. But yeah.
So
it's
this
fine.
is really more of a general look.
It's a
at-
general look.
It is not that very specific master plan I think that you're thinking of
Right.
that really would have to go through.
This
full process.
what it did was give me a way to reach back to 2012 and a master plan that was already in place, tie it all together with the DDD. DDD drove the form base, which, you know, drives downtown and also drives the transit districts that are within the civic center. So it gives me a way to tie it to a plan that the city already has. Now we can update our plan from way back then and include this in it immediately. And then we'll have a plan that governs all of it. But going forward, I think that we're going to have to do more planning based on what we have potentially going on downtown. One of the biggest reasons I thought that the municipal use along the waterfront from the convention center back over to Gulf Quest is the fact that, like you heard me say last week, we don't even have a restaurant in the city of Mobile or a city on the river with out somewhere to eat and look out at our water. But now we even have the possibility of passenger rail coming back downtown and being somewhere along that track too. I think we have a lot that we can possibly do. So.
I just want to make sure that the master plan, I'm not saying, you know, it's not sufficient. I just want to make sure that it wasn't supposed to be part of the notice and
No.
public hearing and everything. And it's your opinion that it's not required.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ball on another matter, that Baker Street matter. Wasn't there some talk at the last meeting about delaying that?
I haven't heard anything else back from
Anything
them.
more from Mr. Pike?
No,
on
sir.
that?
No one else? Clerk?
Consent resolutions being introduced. 37-1035, recommend approval to the ABC Board for issuance of a special retail more than 30 days license to Holiday Inn downtown Mobile on Government Street. 40-1036, 1037 are declaring the structures public nuisances and ordering them demolished. 58-1038, 1039, and 1040 are declaring weeds noxious and authorizing removal of weeds, groups 1637, 38, and 1635. 60, 1041, approval award a special bonus to Administrative Services Employee of the Month. 60, 1042, 1043, 1044 are determining appropriations to CC's Classic Catering. serves a public purpose. Smith Memorial AME Church serves a public purpose. And United Methodist Intercity Mission of Mobile, Inc. serves a public purpose and authorizing payments. 03-1062, approve and confirm the appointments of Abe Harper Jr. and Kelly McGriff to the Mobile Airport Authority. Resolutions being introduced. 01-1045, authorized agreement with Alabama Department of Transportation for maintenance of traffic signals, Service Road 193 and Walmart. 01-1046, authorized agreement with AlDOT for maintenance and traffic signal at Service Road 193 and Halls Mill Road. Also at US 90 and Service Road 193.
Mr. President,
Mr. Jones.
yeah, is Jennifer here by chance, Ms. White? Yeah, I talked with her, gosh, it's been a couple of months ago with the lights down Airport Boulevard that are having synchronization issues. And she said that there were some parts that they were waiting to come in that were required to get that fixed. Do we have a status on that? How long that's going to take and when that's going to get fixed? I'm getting all sorts of complaints on Airport Boulevard.
So we have two different sections there that we're working on. Most recently, we're looking at a section that's not in the district, it's District 5, from Sage to Pine Brook to do some of the detection repairs in there. We are also working with a consultant on the design project for the projects that pick up from there, from University all the way out to Hillcrest. No, excuse me, Cody, all the way out to Cody. We're finishing up the design on that and getting that over to AlDOT so we can get that fitted here.
No, this is just on Airport, and it's ones that we've already put in the fiber optics and synchronized the lights, but there were some issues with some of the equipment that was not upgraded at that time that they were going to replace and fix. Do we have a timeline on how much longer before those parts get in and what that time frame looks like on getting those lights synchronized?
I'm waiting to get that estimate back. I was doing emails about it even just this morning. The lead time on those parts, once we get the authority to buy them, is about 8 to 6 days. It's looking like the first quarter of next year. Before we would get it done.
Mr. President.
Hold on, Mr. Day. Hold on. Okay, Mr. Davis.
I don't want what I'm about to say to be taken as criticism of anyone. But my understanding when we installed the closed loop system from Sage Avenue out to Azalea Road was that it was an entirely new system, that all of it was new. And it turns out that it wasn't. It turned out that some of these switches were not replaced at that time. And that, my understanding, is what's causing these problems there around through that segment now. And I would just urge going forward, because I know we're considering installing similar systems on Dolphin Street between Sage and Rhymes and further out Airport Boulevard. And I would just urge us to consider very carefully, if we're going to go to that expense and that trouble to install that kind of system, that we replace all the equipment at the same time so that we don't end up, that airport project, when you did it, in 13 was $750,000. And, if we could have spent another couple of $100,000 to replace all the equipment, I think we'd be better off than where we are. But again, it shouldn't be taken as criticism. It's the first one we did. We're learning our way through it.
Anyone else? Mr. Mayor.
I agree 100%. We're going to be replacing the equipment we have and we're trying to patch together. I mean, it's beyond that. When you spend that kind of money, when you can get it right, you get it right the first time.
Thank you.
Well, just a little bit more on the timing and things like that. When we do resurfacing projects and widening, whatever it is on a lot of these roadways, we've got some in my district. The traffic light timing is off for some reason. I think they may change it. I'm not sure exactly, but it takes a while to get them back out there to reprogram these lights. So the sooner the better on those. I think we're about there. Maybe we're already finished at one on Spring Hill Avenue, but that's just something else that goes into the mix every time we do these projects. And that apparently is one of the last things that is tweaked or finished in these projects, is going back and working on these timing for the lights. So at any rate, the sooner the better to get those done so that our calls stop coming in and we, don't have to pester you guys as well to get it done.
I'm confused. Question to the engineering guys. The notification loops at the intersection when the cars pull up and roll over, are they still in the asphalt? Or are they now the radar, LiDAR stuff that's on the side of the streets on the poles? Are we still using the loops in the streets?
We use a mix of it all. We use the loops in the road, which as long as the asphalt is maintained well, those are the best and most reliable loops. We have loops out there that have been working for years. But we also are migrating to cameras, which are easier to work with construction zones. You can modify things if there's lane closures and that kind of thing. And we are doing some radar as well.
So the question, are the loops in the streets, are they being milled up when they mill the streets to resurface and they're the last things to go back? Is that, so that's the reason why we have the timing issues?
That's what Ms. Gregory's referring to.
Okay.
Specifically, Spring Hill and Tut Hill, Spring Hill and Stanton has also been complaining about as well. Sometimes they get it, sometimes they don't. I mean,
Anyone else? Madam Clerk?
08-1048 and 1049 are authorizing purchase orders to Samsung Equipment for 2 street sweepers, or 4.
It's going to be 4
4.
street sweepers.
Can I put in a request right here?
Can we all have a street sweeper that is dedicated to our
Yeah,
district?
I wouldn't mind buying 7 as long as it was, one in a district every day. I mean, I really wouldn't. I mean, I know I'm saying this jokingly, but I get a request for a street sweeper at least 7 days a week.
Just about, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many,
Yeah.
with these, how many do we, or will we have now?
So currently we have 11 total street sweepers. Two of them are condemned that aren't going to work. So
we have
2
9.
of these will replace those, and that'll push us back to 11. And then, so really the fleet size at this point is not planning to go above 11. The goal is to get all 11 running and within a good, reliable life cycle. Because right now, the ones that are broke are continuing to break. So.
When it comes to the schedule, how do you do it? Do you put all 11 of them in one area at one time and finish a district, or are they in different districts? Or I know you have like a schedule, but how does it?
I'm sorry. So we work in the schedule, and we have a by zone throughout the city schedule plan. But that is really a plan that can be done when we have 10 street sweepers running. The problem that happens is that a lot of times during the year, especially, Mardi Gras, prime example, but, throughout the year, there's other events that we have to take care of that pull them off. My goal is to have enough street sweepers to have the dependable routes that they never get pulled off the city routes, and then have event street sweepers that are separate so that we don't have to change the routes for those. So, I guess the first step is getting the street sweeper fleet healthy. And then the second step is trying to get enough folks hired that can, and trained to drive them and operate them.
But as far as the schedule goes, when somebody calls and asks when they're going to see a street sweeper in their neighborhood, how do we handle that? That's why I was somewhat teasing, but really kind of serious. If we knew that like all 9 of them or 11 of them were going to be in one district and get it done one day, do they move to the next? Kind of like we do with resurfacing projects. They come in one district in one area, get it all done, move to the next. Or are they spread out on a certain schedule every week?
So how it's eventually going to be, and we can talk about this further because it hasn't been implemented yet. Again, we broke the city up into these street sweeper zones that are manageable, that you can get through during a day, a work shift. And we were really going to break them up into zones and work them. It wasn't going to be one street sweeper per zone. It wasn't really the original plan.
But the zone is an entire district?
No, a district will be multiple zones because a district is too big to get a street sweeper through. So, but I have to see. I can't tell you right now exactly how many zones were in there, but there's more zones than there are districts. So because of the size and the location. So the goal is to, but again, the ultimate goal is that where I'm trying to move to is that we should have on the website on the city website, here's the schedule for street sweeping for the city. And every neighborhood should know when a street sweeper should be coming through. And although we might not know the exact day, they should know, hey, this route will be running, these routes will be running this week, so expect to see street sweepers this week. And then the goal for frequency would be is to eventually get to 2 times a year.
So it's still
well,
only-
2 times a year for the general city, different downtown swept every day, and some of these different areas. We're working on some areas that have more foliage, sweeping more because of the storm drains. So there is a little bit.
So generally, it's still only going to be twice a year for neighborhoods, for the most part.
That's the current plan.
And that's the way it's been, so it's not changing.
Already changed.
To date, they can't, we don't have the people and our operational equipment to maintain that schedule. So what he's trying to build is back the fleet, operational fleet, and have the people to be able to get there, to be able to get to that, back to that schedule. The other piece you pointed out, which maybe got overlooked, is all the call-out events, for, individual parades, special events, that's the same people, same equipment. So we've got to have additional people to be able to respond to those on top of the reliable routes. So we're not there yet. It's a work in progress to get back to the size that we need to. So I would not advertise that, they're going to be there 2 times a year, because that's not there yet. But that's what we're going to try and get back to.
And in the past year, Bigman made great strides to get some back in service, because we really at times only had 3 in service out of the fleet of 11. And so now I think this morning I looked at it, we're at 6, and then we should have 2 more that are coming up within the next 2 weeks. And then hopefully with these, there's 4 that we're purchasing, but then there's a throughput, for the vendor. So 2 will be available in December, but then the next 2 won't be available to the spring, possibly after Mardi Gras. So we're trying to time that and see when those will be ready. So again, there's that vendor piece on purchasing them. But in the past year, don't misunderstand me, we have not swept. It hasn't even been a year. It's been over a year for many neighborhoods that we've swept, just because we haven't had enough sweepers to get through a lot of neighborhoods and events.
Mr. Carroll?
He kind of hit on it, but if you were to only hit my neighborhood twice a year, we'd look like Charlie Brown at Christmas when he jumped in the leaf pile. The streets would be inundated with oak leaves and everything else, and it'd be practically impossible. The inlets would stop up with leaves and everything else. So I hope that some of these neighborhoods where you mentioned need a little bit of extra care. I hope it's a little bit more than twice a year. That's all.
Absolutely. And there's, again, that's part of, storm drains and some of the other pieces for getting that done. There's cleanliness, and then there's, city infrastructure functionality. And so some of those areas, like I said, downtown is daily, and then we're trying to decide these areas are maybe at certain times of the year require multiple routes, or maybe weekly routes because of the foliage, because, again, it's just going to cause us problems in the long run.
This time of year is really bad.
So, yeah, I want to hit the operator piece, because back in, I guess it was just right around Thanksgiving, you sent us an email, 3 operators, 2 trainees. We've got a fleet of 11. What's the target operator number you're looking? Are you looking for 11?
Absolutely. We should have at least the number of operators that we have, because again, people are taking vacation and they get sick and they're out, and then they just, get another job somewhere. The problem again happens that somebody will get upgraded, and then they'll be, get their CDL and they're operating this equipment, and then they find, better jobs. So there's always a throughput flow. So we're trying to work with, HR and different processes to get our folks in and trained, and then and keep them for a while.
Yeah.
Did we ever get that survey back on the employee salaries?
We did get the initial surveys, but I think they've asked for some more information. She's here. No, she's not here.
We're sitting at about 50% operator strength, and if we need another 5, is it a salary issue? Is it a pool issue? employee pool. I mean, is it feasible that we're going to get these in? Are the jobs listed? Those types of things, I think. But if it's a salary issue, and we've done the survey, it'd be interesting to know what that disparity is between what we're paying versus what others are paying. And I'd like to see that. And we can take a look at that. Thank you.
Question. We're open shop, right? We're under the personnel board system, merit system, but we're open shop.
Yeah, it's not
So
organized.
can we not cross-train some of our employees to be multiple task guys? Like, we have laborers coming into the system that come in as laborers, but could we not train them to also be operators at the same time, like you would in a?
And we do that. We have, and so unfortunately, right, so our sanitation truck drivers are cross-trained. A lot of our, sometimes our CDL drivers from street sweepers, eventually they'll move up to a, sanitation truck driver position, and then they're good on that. And so for Mardi Gras, that's some of what we do. Is if we don't have enough operators, some of the sanitation drivers, they drive overtime and do those routes. And so, but the challenge is that, we can only there's only so many folks that we're able to get out there and get CDL licenses for.
Can we do that without interfering with the wage rate requirements for the step up, or is it lateral? Because a lot of times I've read or seen where our employees complain, "Oh, I'm doing this job, but it costs. I should be getting paid more to do this job, but I'm doing this job and this job." And is it a wage increase, or is it a lateral step?
So for some of them, it depends on what equipment operates. So for instance, if a garbage truck driver is an equipment operator 3 position, so if you went from driving a street sweeper, that would be a step up to move to a sanitation truck driver. I mean, a side loader truck driver.
But generally,
So we need the higher level drivers to step back and help us, as opposed to the lower level
other
drivers.
direction, yeah.
We need to go backwards instead of coming up to prevent the.
There's really not any lower level drivers that we have that can fill street sweepers.
generally speaking, we do a pretty good job. I mean, if they're ready to move up, we always try and make sure we give them opportunities to advance. So it's not an issue of they're doing a skill level higher and they're not getting paid. If they are, generally we've already advanced into that position because we need them in that position. It'd be very rare that be the problem. Because we try and fill those vacancies and those higher, more critical ones like side loader garbage trucks versus that's why you see the street sweeper operators are down in the low numbers because some of those guys graduated and moved from EO2 to EO3 and they're now doing garbage trucks because that's a more critical need than it is the other. So
Yeah.
the whole point, it's hiring workforce is a challenge across the board.
Well,
so whether you're a policeman, you're a public service worker, or you're on a restaurant, getting workers to come work is a challenge.
Yeah, I agree with that. I see a lot of kids, in the coaching area, that kids, when they finish high school just don't go off right away. They kind of mill around. If they knew some of these opportunities were out here, I think we could probably get them in. I don't know how that will work with the personnel board, but there are kids out there right now looking for an opportunity. They just don't know how to get to the opportunity. I think that a broader way to publish the opportunity, would be out there. And, another thing is a better way of romanticizing the opportunity, because a lot of these 18-year-old kids don't realize that if they start here within the municipality, the Ben and Jerry's that come along with a start, at a job like this, or maybe the gateway to helping their families that they don't even realize. Even though you're working here at the city of the municipal part in municipal department within the general services, they don't even realize the health benefits and lifetime benefits that they get from working here. I mean, that's a draw for some of these kids that are coming from underserved families. I think we can really pub that. I mean, not to hold you up, Mr. President, but this is yours. I think it'd be a great idea. I'd be glad to beat the drums for you, because I know some places where you can find some kids that, would probably be looking for an opportunity.
And we do job fairs multiple times a year to recruit right off the street if we can. So there's lots of opportunity and just point them to the personnel board website, because it's always open, continuous open vacancies on this position.
Man, that's a conversation for another day.
But the other thing is, a lot of these positions start off as unskilled laborers.
Yeah.
All they have to do is fill out an application.
That's right.
They don't have to go through personnel board, because after they've been here 3 to 6 months, then they can move up to those other positions. PSW one, PSW two,
What is-
whatever's available.
And we do those with the job fairs.
What does that do to job security though, without going through personnel board and then the merit system?
So we have a plan for that. So that's exactly how we work our street sweepers, is that we bring them, we start as unskilled laborers. And then, we bring them in as a public service one, which is a merit position through the personnel board. And so, since they're already in as an unskilled labor, they don't have to go through the personnel board process, fill out an application, and move them up to public service one. Then we work to get them their CDL in that, and then that's where they're a trainee. And then we move them up to an operator. So we have that plan, but unfortunately, kind of like I think you mentioned multiple times, that once you're a street sweeper for a while, some folks just enjoy the job and they've done it for a career. But there's other folks that say that, hey, now I have to drive for a trucking company, or I have my CDL and I'm going to go off and do better things. So there's constant mobility in the force. So unless we, and we continue to try to feed it, but sometimes we can't feed it enough for the throughput.
Mr. President. Mr. Penn.
What is the age requirement? And then you just said, I guess it's no education, a high school diploma.
They don't
Okay,
need
so no, so skilled labor. Okay, so it's an age requirement, 18. All right. So the reason why I'm asking that, I had the opportunity to go to Kansas City for the National League Conference, and this was one of the things that they was working, towards their workforce. And I believe job fairs and all these are great information, but many times you have to go to where the kids are located, and one of the things that they're working on, and I'm sure we're doing similar things, but I think doing it all together, like Councilman Carroll stated, like if I need to go, I have a great relationship in certain communities. Going into the schools, if we have a day where we gonna market these positions and these kids are graduating from high school, and I already talked to Bishop State, and many of these kids are not going off to college. This is a great opportunity for them to now get a job with the city of Mobile. And I'm born on the time I left Mobile is when I went off to school at Stillman College in Tuscaloosa. I came back. I never was recruited by the city of Mobile to do anything. So I didn't know all those jobs was out there, So for a young kid that's 18 who might not know that opportunity, that when they finish, or that they have a chance to go work for the city of Mobile, then this could be a great chance to build those relationships with those schools and put people that they have relationships with, and now we're on the same page, not just saying, hey, go to the personnel board and fill the application. That's big. That's a lot for a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, when you go there and you see all those numbers and CL this and 2 this, what is that? You know what I mean? But if you go into the school system and you break this down and talk about the benefits and the opportunity, now we can start trying to build our workforce. And I just think I saw it's working in Kansas City. I think this will be a great opportunity in Mobile, but for me as a council member and having that relationship in my district with the high schools, I think I definitely beat the drum again with Councilman Carroll, and I'm sure all my colleagues will support as well. But I think this is a great opportunity to kind of build our workforce development here in the city of Mobile. Thank you, Mr. President.
I have a vested interest. Some of you have heard me tell this story. My first job was in the construction industry as a laborer, just digging holes for scaffolding and building scaffolding and going from one stage to the next. I went to college. I thought I was going to be a business major, but I had so much experience as a laborer and working my way through the labor system and earning a trade before I ever got to college. That when I was in the college, the business dean told me I knew more about engineering than I did about business and sent me to the engineering school. So my story is surrounded by being a laborer before I was ever any type of engineering or had any type of engineering degree. So this is a prime. This could lead to our kids gaining a gainful, having gainful employment, but also higher education, depending on whether or not they like what they're doing within the city system.
Go ahead, and we're going to move on to the next agenda item. But I want to just say this. The best way to reach the younger people,
It's where they're
social media. campaign advertisement, Facebook. Madam Clerk.
08-1050, authorized purchase order to Beard Equipment Company for 2 John Deere mowers for golf course. 08-1051, authorized purchase order to Lennox, what is it? Lights for 1-year subscription for drive cam services for motor pool. 08-1052, authorized purchase order to Musico Sports Lighting for field lighting fixtures for Mims Park. 08-1053, approved purchase order to Magnet Forensics USA for 1-year subscription for forensic extraction and analysis software for MPD Cyber Division. 08-1054, authorized purchase order to 5Cast for 1-year subscription for open source analysis software for Mobile Police Department Cyber Division. 08-1055, authorized purchase order to Clear World LLC for 25 light poles and fixtures for 3 Mile Creek Greenway Trail.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Penn.
where will the located? Do we already have what the 25 light poles will go for 3 miles?
But these are for segment 6 and the 3 Mile Creek Greenway Trail.
Okay, so you said
That section constructed, and these were procuring the light poles for the project.
where's section 6 located?
It's
Down your way.
To Millsport. Okay, so that certain section haven't been, I guess, paved. So, but we are putting the poles there to get prepared for that.
Well, no, we're just ordering the poles.
The order, okay, to be ready.
And the contractor will install them.
Okay,
What's the lead time on the phones?
These are, what it doesn't say is these are solar LED, so we've been testing several for a couple of years now, and they've performed really well. So I think the lead is probably 9. I think this was shorter, yeah. And these were engineered to our specs and designed to our specs, but it'll be several months. That's why we're getting them on order now so that we can get them in and the contractor does the work, he can install them. So we're providing that hardware for them.
okay, so with the other light poles, are we looking to probably go with these going forward?
These will be the standard we're using everything, and that section that's already done has a different light bulb. We'll actually replace those with this version. So
Okay.
It'll be the same light bulbs for the whole project.
All right.
There will be, just as a heads up, this is the first of multiple orders you'll see over the coming months and years for these light bulbs from this vendor going forward.
Okay. Do we have a time? Because I haven't had an update. Do we have a time schedule with the process of paving the rest, or like getting the sidewalks and all that?
Yes, we can give you an update on that.
Okay.
The pre-bid meeting for this section is next Tuesday, so we're well on our way. So this fits right into our timeline of procuring these lights.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anyone else? Madam Clerk.
21-1056, authorized contract for Clark Gear Latham and Associates for design and construction services for new animal shelter facility.
Mr. President.
And Mr. Jones.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in the city will be glad to see this. I do have one question. I know we did a study recently that was supposed to sort of lay out a best use facility. Are we using that study that was done in conjunction with the construction to make sure that we integrate those plans with this? Thank you.
Where's the new shelter gonna be?
They've got about 2 or 3 sites they're trying to pinpoint where it's gonna be located right now. That's part of this service is to help us do the final definition of the site.
So this includes programming money?
Programming as well as the final site location, geotech and everything, yeah.
So that's why the number's a little.
A little bit more than it would be about 1, and it's the other money in there is covering all those other elements.
Kind of surprised me. It made me think the building was a whole lot bigger than what it was when I saw the fee down there.
It's still it's a pretty substantial building. It's gonna be over $10 million probably likely for the construction contract.
So there's a lot of specialization that we're asking to be designed into this building.
Mr. President.
Mr. Penn.
So you said we have 2 locations.
2 or 3 locations. that
So,
we're trying- yeah,
but we know those 3
Yeah.
locations. Okay.
currently.
Okay.
Is that something you guys can tell us, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to, we can get you afterwards. I can get you the specifics afterwards.
All right.
Mr.
What's
Davis?
what's the What's your best guess at the total all-in cost?
We don't want it to, we don't want it to exceed the total engineering, design, construction. We want to get it below 15 million. So that's going to be, we're not trying to go above that.
Thank you.
What will happen to the current facility? Are we going to keep it and use it
It'll be
for
torn
something?
down once
It-
this is built.
Oh, you're going to tear it down?
Mr. Carroll,
So,
you got a statement?
no, I was just thinking about the state, fee rate scale based on total cost of construction and that drives the fee of the consultant. So he said that there are other things on top of it, so kind of blurs the total picture.
It's about 8% design fee, 8.5%.
Is that including everything, the program? I thought the state scale was between 3 and 7 on dollars up to 10 million or whatever, and gets less going over. I gotta look at it again, but that's why I told you it kind of felt like it was a little high. I'm sorry.
Madam Clerk?
21-1057, authorized contract with Stearns, Conrad, and Schmidt Consulting Engineers for Mobile County-wide recycling feasibility studies, supported by a grant from ADEM.
I have a quick question. I know Casey's here. Are we working with the county on this, since it's a countywide?
This is a partnership. We have multiple cities that went into this grant together with us, as well as the county. So it's a whole team, Biobactery, Creola, Chickasaw, Saraland, Satsuma, Sims, and Dauphin Island, and I'm probably forgetting somebody, as well as the county. But the goal is for it to work for everybody.
So the end goal would be for a countywide program to start, perhaps, or don't know?
Hopefully, they're really looking at feasibility for what
Could be.
for our community. So maybe it's curbside in the city, but that might not work for Dauphin Island. Maybe it's a material recovery facility would work. So they're looking at all the different questions, and I can provide all the scope of work, a shortened version of the scope of work as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, Casey.
Hey, Casey, would this be a system? So the facility we're talking about would be a processing facility. Is the idea that the city would still have several drop-off places and that at those locations, the material would be carried to the central processing facility like we were taking it to Pensacola?
That's a possibility. So this is just a feasibility study. So we're gonna, at the end result, in about 6 months, I think June is our outside date. They're gonna say, these are the options, these are the costs, these are the economies of scale. This is what it would take for you to encourage a material recovery facility, which is what they have in Pensacola, to a third-party contractor to come to the city of Mobile to do it. To host one of those, so then we could do drop off, but it might be that you could only inspire somebody to do that if you did curbside. So they're really looking at all the different options. In the scope of work, what the kind of big pieces they're looking at are what doing it just exactly like what we have now, the county and the city, expanding those same drop-off facilities, continuing to take it to ECUA, hauling to the next closest one, because maybe ECUA, which has been a little bit unreliable over the last couple of years, creating a transfer station so we can also bring businesses into the system, looking at in-house curbside, outsourcing curbside, expanding drop-off opportunities, and again, establishing a MRF within the county. So those are the minimums that they're going to be studying to see what would be most feasible. And then again, the biggest importance of working with the other cities within the county are what would get us an economy of scale and really drive in expanding recycling.
Yeah, I think obviously the easier we can make it for the citizens to dispose of their recyclable material, the better off we're going to be. If we're expecting people who live in Councilman Carroll's district to drive out to Snow Road somewhere in the middle of the county to drop it off, that's going to be a difficult climb. So I think at the very least, we need to end up with a system where there are drop-off areas within the city that are easily accessible by people that are residents of the city, no matter where they live.
If you recall from the survey we did end of last year, one of the biggest things was everybody whose zip code was close to a recycling center, their recycling rates were
higher, yeah.
significantly higher. And they use that local facility. So, and we've done some analysis of where people are recycling with the zip codes, because we're looking at the other part of this grant was to open a third drop-off site. So we're analyzing our zip codes to figure out where people are coming from so that we can put a site in that district. So there's a lot there. And I want to remind folks, and the mayor encouraged us to ask this really important question about reminding people that we don't pay for trash and garbage in the city of Mobile. So if we do anything along with recycling, it will most likely require a cost. So we've got to figure that out. And again, finding those economies of scale are critically important. Thank you.
I have one question. I would like to know, when they pick up this recyclable, what's the process from when they pick it up to where it goes, and then what happens to it at the recycling center where all of this comes to? And I ask that because I was in Herat, Afghanistan, and we actually recycled. We separated our trash. We were mandated to do that. And one day I watched as this recycling truck came and picked up the trash. And I watched, you could see on the horizon where they would drive the trash to, and every day they would burn the trash. And I watched the recyclable truck pick up the trash, and lo and behold, they took it right to where the other trash was, and it was treated just like all the trash. And there was no recycling going on at all. And that's what I would just, if you can, and I don't want to take up the time today, but if you can just send that to me and information so I can read that and see it. So I know what that process is from the point in time that it gets picked up to how they really recycle it would be great.
One additional point I want to point out, because our stations, our drop-off sites are monitored, we have almost 0%, I would say 1% of our recycling is contaminated. So that also does a whole lot better for Emerald Coast utilities, that what they're getting from us is clean and easier to recycle. Thank you. I'll get you some information.
Madam Clerk.
21-1058, authorized consultant contract with Christian Prius Landscape Architecture for improvements at Mims Lawn and Stotts Parks. 23-1059, accept deed for easement for the Gordon Smith Center, Inc. for the 3 Mile Creek Greenway Trail. 37-1060, consider approval of certificate of public convenience and necessity to Mobile Pedal Tours LLC to operate an electric motor assisted pedal vehicle. Call for public hearings. 41-1061, call for public hearing to consider approval of a certificate of public convenience and necessity to the Southwest chapter of the Alabama Coalition of Citizens with Disabilities to operate a shuttle service scheduled December 13th. Announcements.
Anything from the council?
President.
Mr. Penn.
This past weekend, we had our Tomerville LaFleur alumni weekend. It was amazing. I want to publicly give a big shout out to the Mobile Police Department, Public Works, everyone at Parks and Recs. It went definitely smooth during the time, and then afterwards, I went out there to the park. I mean, they was cleaning up. The street sweepers was out. And it was just amazing. It was a beautiful time. So I want to thank you all for all the service that y'all provided this past weekend.
Mr. Davis.
Yeah, I would just like to ask Councilman Jones if he could give us a kind of overview of the meeting, the public services meeting this afternoon, and who he thinks is going to be there and how it's going to kind of roll out.
Yeah, I was actually
1 o'clock.
Yeah, I was about to make that announcement. So thanks, Joel. It is 1 o'clock in the auditorium. This meeting is going to have the city council, the county commission. It's going to have some state legislators there. I need to get confirmation that the commissioner from the Department of Mental Health will be there. I was told last week that she would be here It's really important that we have a person from the Department of Mental Health, because there's some significant issues and challenges that we're seeing in the city that need to be addressed at the state level. And the purpose of today's meeting is to lay out some of those challenges. There's a lot of things that are in the 310 code that I believe we need to get clarification on. We need to get some clarity with regards to how things are going on. We have problems. We have significant issues, and we've heard those at least for the year I've been sitting on the city council. And as you peel back the layers on this and you start doing the research, it raises a lot of questions with regards to what's really going on and how is it happening and who's running the mental health processes and procedures in this city. That 310 board are our appointees. Every county, every city is the governing body of that board. And I was talking with one of the county commissioners. He said, you know what, Scott, I've been here for a long time doing this, and we've sort of taken our hands off the wheel of this, and we need to relook it. And that's what the purpose of this meeting is to get a current status of where we are, address some of the challenges that we have, and figure how to get this thing back on track, because we're not where we should be as laid out per the statute and the regulations in the state.
How are we gonna, is the council gonna sit where we normally do? County
Yes.
commissioners, where are they gonna be?
Behind
They're
us
gonna be up
in their
top, and
normal places.
Then any legislators will sit where?
Well, they're not really going to speak. They're here to observe and listen. If they want to speak, they can come to the mic and they'll have an opportunity to address us. Absolutely.
And then
But they're-
folks from the state level will also be sitting where?
Yeah, if anybody from the commission is there, they'll sit in where the administration sits,
Because as
to
far
the
as
left
asking
side.
for information, yeah, and the administration folks, but.
Well, they're.
I guess
mean,
whoever
they're-
might want to be involved can just sit down front somewhere close
Sure.
by.
No, because this is really a city council and a county commission issue.
So it's really going to be the council and the commission asking questions.
To the Department of Mental Health and to the 310
Health.
board, correct.
What's the goal?
This is the first of what I think hopefully will be a series of discussions. But today is to lay out the foundational issues that we have with mental health in the city. And that's what is going to happen today. And we're going to lay out the laws, the statute. We're going to talk with the Department of Mental Health and get their insight and their thoughts on where they are supposed to play in this, because those lines are extremely blurred. And as I've tried to get answers, those answers are not available. So this meeting is a forcing function to get answers, is what this meeting is.
Well,
Days.
you know, Councilman Richardson used to point out regularly that the state of Alabama had entrusted public health to the counties. That's my recollection and my understanding. So I think it'd be good if we could get some clarification of that also.
Well, and that's where I would tell you by the 310 statute, Mr. Richardson's wrong, because we are the governing body of the 310 board for Mobile. And it's our role, and this gets back to governance of boards. The vision of that board should be regulated by this body, and how this body expects to see mental health care carried out in this city. That's our responsibility. The county has a role with their appointees, and collectively together, we are doing this together. And that's why I'm having this meeting, because there are a lot of disparities. There are a lot of misconceptions that are out there. And we have got to have the Department of Mental Health involved in coming in and providing some oversight with this and helping us address some of the challenges.
I think it'd be helpful if Mr. Walsh and Mr. Woods, someone could get together and give us some insight into who has responsibility for public health in the city.
But
of Mobile.
that's what this meeting is, Joel, and I'm going to lay it out by statute. I've got the law that will be in front of us today at 1 PM.
I know what your opinion is.
It's not
I-
an opinion. It's laid out very clearly by definition, and I'll show you that. I've got it in writing, Joel. And it's very clear. The 310 statute says the governing body of the 310 board are the city councils and the county commission that appoint the board. I mean, I don't know how much more interpretation that demands.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reynolds.
I think it'd be helpful, as Joel, Mr. Daves outlined, if we could get a copy of maybe the 310 statute distributed to everybody on the council. And also, Mr. Walsh, if he could provide, not necessarily a written opinion, but be familiar with it enough to be prepared for the meeting. I appreciate you having this meeting. I think it's has some usefulness to it that we should take advantage of, and that is to gain a better understanding of what our role is as a city, what the county's role is, what the state's role is, and start, forming our policy going forward on how to address mental health issues throughout the city. So I think we ought to take advantage of it, be prepared to ask questions. Maybe if somebody could sort of present a little bit of information, background to it from the mental health board, kind of what they do routinely, the role they play in it, and how they see a city, interacting and helping out and being a part of, a solution going forward. I think it's a good discussion that needs to be had. And I don't think it's a controversial one, where we're, attacking this group or that group. It's just a matter of laying all the facts out there for us to see and understand them so we can develop our own policy and strategy going forward.
Let me finish this up, and this all lays out the issues that I had yesterday, and we had a meeting yesterday was called for one purpose, and that was for us to lay out a time and a place to get facts on the table before we took a very important and controversial issue to a vote. The overarching entity that is going to regulate and oversee this is the State Cannabis Commission. They were asked 2 weeks ago to come and provide input and discussion. When we showed up yesterday, there was nobody there. Fortunately, Ms. Carr had the number to the commissioner for that commission. She got him on the phone. What y'all didn't hear before the meeting is the commissioner tell me that they never had any plans to be here, and that this is not their issue, and that meeting didn't matter to the commission. That's what was told to me on the phone as I was sitting in the auditorium yesterday at 2:05. I find it hard to believe, and I told him this, that the commission that is tagged by the governor to oversee this issue doesn't find it important enough for the second largest city in this state to be present and have this discussion. Fortunately, he got a guy to call in that's the deputy director. And what I saw, we hear, and we've gotten numerous emails about how regulated and how tightly controlled this is. And what I heard yesterday was a deputy director that does not have specific knowledge on how all of this is going to take place. If I, as a deputy director of a program, which I have been in my 30-year career, did not have more in-depth and specific answers to questions that were asked, I would be fired. It's that simple. I heard a lot of very general guidelines with no specificity. He talked about Aaliyah as the enforcement arm. I had somebody from this city talk to an Aaliyah representative last night, and Aaliyah said, we have no plans to be involved in the dispensaries. Well, that's a huge disconnect from what we were told by the commission yesterday. And I say that to point out the fact that we're going to take a vote on the 13th of December to approve these. And if y'all don't have questions from what you heard in that meeting yesterday from the deputy commissioner, I got a lot of questions. And I don't know why we're rushing into this when they can't even articulate. We didn't even get into the fact that this is all cash. Every transaction that's going to go through a dispensary is a cash transaction. And yes, there's processes and procedures in the regulations that have to be accounted for. But what happens when somebody wants to go outside the law? How are you going to track that? Aaliyah is going to be involved supposedly, but Aaliyah has come back and said, we don't have an involvement. So there's a dysfunctional process here. And all I'm saying, and I'm not going to argue this at
Let's
this
try to
point, but
summarize it.
I would ask that we hold off and get these answers before we go to a vote.
Okay.
And it's imperative that we have the state come down and work with us on this.
Ms. Carroll?
Yeah, David, if I could get maybe 5 minutes to talk about the engineering letters that I got for the property on Cedar Street I know it's coming up again, need to let you know at least they're making some progress so that we don't do anything that may cause an unintended consequence. And I want to ask the administration just one question that centers around what Scott said, but it goes back to y'all's first term. What was the reasoning that that you rolled back I think it was either resolution or request to decriminalize small amounts of marijuana? What happened? Was it a council? Was it public outcry? The state legislation wasn't ready. State law.
City attorney determined that we were preempted.
The sheriff was working on it with the city, and they figured out that state law did not allow ticketing.
Right. So, but Birmingham has gone for it now, right? Birmingham has gone for it now. So, I mean, I think the fear is that they think, or some people think that we're going to decriminalize some of this and maybe some scariness. But in my opinion, the administration was right in their first attempt. And I think at some point way down the road or whenever, I don't know what we're going to do. But for right now, we're talking about some dispensaries. We're not talking about raw marijuana leaves and stuff like that. So that was just my one thought. Appreciate y'all telling me what happened.
Anything else from the council? Anything from administration? No, we see each other at 10:30.